as you maybe know, I come from Finland, and this is my thesis film from my university. And it's around, like, we shot it around 3 years ago, so the process itself, it's not very fresh anymore. I've been working on other stuff for a while, but you know, the film has been going to quite a few places and it's been recognized in some of the festivals. But you know, today the idea with this workshop is to screen the film and dive into writing comedy with heart. And there is two things goes in writing comedy with heart. There is the story and the funny things in comedy. So we are trying to, like, discuss a bit about structure, how I structured this film. My background is in mathematics in a way. I'm a big math enthusiast, let's say, and that's where my thinking, it's a bit analytical in scripts, and the structure for me is a tool. You basically write with an instinct, and when that instinct fails you, or you have some problem, something doesn't work, then you use the structure and that analytical thinking to fix the problem. You know, that's the tools you use to do that, and we are going to talk about the character and the conflict, and then we are doing some, at the end of the workshop, we are going to be doing some comedy writing, like exercises, I would call them. So that's the plan for today. And talking about structure, talking about stories, this is from Robert McKee. It's not like the idea is not to have, like, what's that word? Like designs, you know, not have like you should have this happen on a page 67 or so on, but it's more about the principles of the story, principles of the drama. Yeah, but I think if you don't have any questions, I don't want to bore you with my life story or anything. You're going to see my film. It's going to be 12 minutes. It's on a Saturday evening show, but there's a lot of other short films, so if you're not, this is not the only one there, so I hope you come on the Saturday there. I hope it's going to be a nice night.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
When you write your films, are you writing for an international audience from the get-go, or are you writing primarily just from your heart and just for the audience you know?
I'm writing, I think, you know, to express something, you know, and well, we are going to go a little bit deeper what it is in this particular film, but you know, I think it's a bit wrong to try to write a good film or try to write to an international audience or something, you know, that because that's kind of a messes up your writing system in a way. You know, you don't want to, like, focus on the goal, you want to focus on the process of the writing. And you know, we're going to get a little bit deeper to this, but I think, yeah, it's a bit of, I think for me it would be a problem to think, you know, there's going to be like thousands of people watching this. It wouldn't at least make it a bit at least easier for me. So yeah. Okay, but yeah, welcome. Let's roll the film. Okay.
Voinko mä mennä mun yhden kaverin mökille illalla? Sinne on tulossa aika paljon porukkaa. Naisväkeäkin. Voinko mä mennä? Voinko?
kanssakäymisessä erotiikalla on keskeinen rooli. Bonobot kiihottuvat helposti ja ne ratkaisevat konfliktinsa taistelun sijaan parittelemalla. Toisin kuin simpansseilla, bonobonaaraan sukuelimet ovat sopeutuneet kasvokkain paritteluun. Keskimääräinen paritteluaika on noin 13 sekuntia.
Paljon onnea vaan. Aamupala on valmis.
Joo.
Varmaan lipsahti pois. Voi vittu.
Mari, meidän pitäisi päästä apteekkiin niin aika nopein.
Sherlock. Mitä sä otat Moselle?
No ei me nyt mautolla ehitä, se on auki enää puoli tuntia.
Onneksi meillä on 2 päivää aikaa.
No se on kiinni koko viikonlopun.
Vittu. En mä halua mahaa.
En mäkään.
Mulla on idea. Mari Paatero.
Kosti.
Niin Marilla on noita vatsakramppeja. Magneesiumia tarvitsisi hakea apteekista.
Magnesiumia. Eikös meillä ole tuolla lääkekaapissa magnesiumia?
Eikö siellä on sitä jotain uutta, sitä jauhetta?
Jaa.
Se imeytyy nopeammin. Niin.
No. Jaa.
Tässä olisi 20 minuuttia aikaa.
Joo.
Ei nyt 300 tonne mahuta.
Mitä yhteistä on saippua kuplalla ja eurolla ja dollarilla? Lensi kaikki kauniina niin kimmeltää, mutta kun koskivat ei mitään käteisiä.
Nyt taisi jäädä. Meillä on magnesiumit saamatta. Kuinkas meille nyt sitten käy?
Sitten meille käy samalla lailla kuin sulle ja äidille.
Lukonvaihtohommia. Pojan kanssa. Niinpä tietenkin. Yksikään.
Kaunista iltaa vaan. Kyliltäkös korhoset on tulossa?
Juu.
Te sattuneet apteekissa käymään.
No, tulihan siellä piipahdettua, juu.
Joo. No, ei tämä niin vakava homma ole. Kassaan te ette koskeneet, niin sitä minä vaan ihmettelin, että mitä te veitte sieltä?
Huulirasvaa.
Mitä sulla on siellä taskussa? Näytä.
Näytä nyt se. Näytä nyt se.
No niin. Onko nää sun tyttökaverille?
Juu.
Älä huoli. On näitä sattunut itse kullekin. Aina on selvitty. Vaan mitä kosti? Joo. Tai ihan rauhallisesti. Mä huomaan, että sä oot vähän hermostunut, mutta kyllä kaikki järjestyy. Teillä on nyt hätätilanne. Minä tarjoan kyydin.
Toi on Marin isä. Niinpä niin.
Kiitos. Me varmaan tästä nyt jo selvitäänkin.
Ymmärrän. Henkilökohtaista.
Niin.
Ei saatana. Mari! Ovi auki!
Moi iskä.
Tänne et sit tule enää.
Hei, oota, eikö me voitais vaikka jutella, niin saatais selvitettyä tää keissi?
Mene nyt pois siitä. Mene nyt helvettiin siitä nyt.
Ota vaan ihan rauhallisesti. Mä huomaan, että sä oot nyt vähän hermostunut. Mutta kyllä kaikki järjestyy.
Niin.
Hyvää piirakkaa. Niin, tai että siis on herkullista.
Miten? Ootko saanut kalaa?
Pojan kanssa on käyty pilkillä.
No, päivä pidentynyt.
Joo. Tässä varmaan kohta kesäkumitkin autoalle laittaa.
Somebody once asked me what would happen in a part 2, and I was like, oh, I haven't thought of that. I have no idea. Why should we have it? Yeah, prequel would be nice, actually. Yeah, there is some backstory we edited out in this film. Yeah. So yeah, well, the story of the film starts like about 4 years back. I was working on a screenwriting class, and the original idea was, I think it has had something to do with my family, and the thing I realized that my parents had never had me to talk, you know, the sex and the stuff, and and the inspiration for the character of father was one of my uncles, who is like the worst small talk ever, possibly. You know, when he's visiting my mom, he just kind of awkwardly stands in a hallway. It's just it's not really good for talking. And of course, these all things that happens in the film are, in case you're wondering, are fictional. That hasn't happened to me. But you know, I had to come up with something to tell the story, of course, you know. So yeah, and well, I think we did several versions of the story, or I did with the help of my screenwriting teachers, and it took about 6 months to get it right, to get the story right. I think we had like a pervy grandma or something. There are many versions of it, but you know, in the end, we had to get rid of a lot of characters, a lot of the clutter to get the story like going, and it's only a 12-minute short film. There is so little you can do in a 10-minute or 12-minute or 15-minute short film. I think it has to be like really simplified in a short. So now that I haven't watched it in a while, you know, it's interesting and to see how little is in the film actually, so, of the stuff that we taught. And okay, then when I went to shooting, it was late March in Finland. It was the last weekend we had snow, so it was shot in 4 days in 2 separate weekends, and we were really in hurry, so we had to do these like crazy long 16-hour days to get all the exterior shots done before the snow was melted. But you know, it was a good crew. We managed to pull it out on those conditions. And then we did in the interior scenes in a much nicer weekend, which didn't take too long. But yeah, it was a 4-day shoot. We edited this film a lot. I think the first assembly edit was over 20 minutes long, and when we got to the point of the first rough cut, it was maybe like 16 minutes long. We thought, oh, there's no way to edit anything out of this. And then one of my teachers said that, okay, it's a good film. We screened it to him, and he said, it's a good film, but you have to edit your material. And at that point, I realized that we had just done some kind of a beauty editing. But we had some structural problems in the film. For example, we had like, I think 2 or 3 scenes of the backstory of the father or the family, that the mother has died in a family, and the father has been left alone and so on. That really hurt the pacing in the beginning of the film. So I think we had 5 to 6 minutes in front of everything before like the accident really happens in the bedroom, and that was far too long. Now I think it's around 3 minutes, and that's fine. It's still, I think it's still not the perfect beginning. I think the first scenes could be like, they could have a little bit more drive to them, but I think it's better now than we did these kind of radical editing decisions and so on. And then I think it's about 2.5 years since the finishing of the films, and it started touring the festivals. It's been, I think, 70 festivals now. It's been a big surprise for our school and for myself, how well it's done. I think here in North America, we made it into the Seattle Film Festival, yeah, International Film Festival there, and it became a second. It was in second place in the audience awards. I think they had some audience voting there. I wasn't there, but you know, and it's been in some other festivals. It's turned out to be an audience film, so it's haven't won like these big jury awards, but quite a lot of audience have liked it, so it's always nice. So that's the story of the film. But now let's dive a bit deeper into the structure of the screenplay and how I thought of that particular screenplay and the process. I think can this be pulled up? Yeah, so we can use that board. Yeah. So yeah, So, what's the plot of the film? Somebody tell me what happens in the film in a nutshell. Yeah.
All the complications from trying to get the girlfriend. Yeah.
The morning after pill.
Yes.
Yeah. That's basically the plot. So they have this little love accident. Condom slips. They need the morning after pill. And of the boys is 16, so it's a threat. So and there's like basically in a plot wise what happens in the film is that it's maximally hard for them to get it right. They live in a small village, and let's put some. Here's like the plot. That's the plot of the film. Trying to get that, like the morning after pill. So they live in this isolated little town. The pharmacy is like 15 kilometers away. It's winter time. It's then there's the police comes. They are late from the pharmacy. The police comes. There's all these complications that happen, and that's the plot, and that's important. Of course, the plot has to be engaging in some way. But there's of course the level of the story. What do you think is the story of the film? It's interesting to hear.
Go on, Declan. What?
Yeah, you have something in mind.
Well, in my eyes, while the plot was just going through the complications of him trying to get the morning after pill, the story itself was the complication between the father and the son of their sort of communication for the birds and the bees, and just kind of him trying to tell him that everything will be all right, this happens, just be more safe, but that sort of complication within that, and then that complication within the actual larger complication, which is getting the morning after.
Very good. I of course I don't want to, like, in a way too much dictate what's that about, but that's what I had in mind. You know, it's the film that the film is like, you asked me what do I write about, and that's basically what I tried to write about in this film. It's about communication between the father and the son, which comes, of course, the idea comes from my family, and it's of course a very Finnish problem. We are considered very silent, and you know, there's this special breed of Finnish people called Hämäläinen, and Hämäläinen is basically like the most reserved type of Finn in a way. So it's basically like Hämäläinen is basically like you are not easily pissed off, but you are not easily like pleased also. It's like kind of this slow moving type of people. So, but yeah, so the story is about, you know, the father and the son trying to get a way to communicate. In the previous script versions we had, there was something. I think the son tried to talk about the sex to his father, which was a bit unnatural. It didn't work out, so I had to find a way, plot-wise, to force them to make something to force them to communicate. And I think the thing that cracked the screenplay for me was the morning after pill. And when I realized that, then I had all these pieces of the film I had dreamed in the previous, I think, 5 months, they kind of fall together, and it became like a consistent. So the morning after pill, the plot is there to constantly put these two characters, the father and the son, in the position that they should talk, but they can't do it. So they have to find another way, and that's basically what the father does in the end. So that's the idea behind the screenplay. Yeah. And of course, it has to be about sex, because the sex is the most difficult thing to talk with your parents, I think. So that's why it has to be about the birds and the bees. So yeah, but yeah, this is what I mean by like thinking my scripts a bit from the mathematics perspective, because there has to be some core idea that everything is kind of a servicing to in the film, and if something is not, then it's easily kind of a discarded from the film. And of course, that goes in all the levels of the filmmaking. So yeah. So okay, there's this level of conflict I want to talk about. There's like I think for me, there's like these like really important concepts: conflict, resolution, and what's the third one? Slipped out of my head. Stakes. It's the stakes. In the film, and it works with any film. You know, of course, this film is a classically structured film, very much. Of course, it's not like because in the short film form you don't do like three act structure. No, if you do a 3-act structure in a 12-minute film, you are probably in a lot of trouble. You know, it's too short of time, but it's a classical structure in a way. So I'm not going to talk about if you read Robert McKee's story or something else. I'm not going to talk about these kind of more like advanced or more like experimental stuff. So, but basically, yeah, conflict. Like in a plot-wise, in a story-wise. In a plot-wise, what do you think is the conflict in the plot? Yeah, basically. They have like, I think there's like 48 hours you have to take the morning after pill, and that's also a time lock, by the way. And yeah, and conflict has to be, of course, as hard as possible, and that's what I said earlier. There's all these complications that come from the environment for the characters, and then there's the resolution. Of course, the girl gets the pill. But of course, the resolution, I think the golden advice that I have given is that give the resolution that the audience want, but you know, not in the way the audience expects it to happen. I don't know if you heard this one, but you know, I think it's a brilliant advice from someone. And of course, the conflict and the resolution. The conflict would be what is really hard, at least for some of my scripts. I'm currently working on like a TV series for Finnish broadcasting company, and then like 2 other short films. And for my scripts, the stakes is like the hard part in this combination. So here the stakes on the plot-wise are pretty simple. If the girl gets pregnant, it's obvious, but sometimes it can be hard for what is in the stake in the film, and you know, that really drives the conflict. Now I'm like doing also another web series concept that has these teenagers planning a terrifying bomb attack. So that's actually more easier to write. So I'm not going to. It's in early stages. I'm not going to give you any details, but it's a comedy actually too. But you know, it's because the thing is so dramatic, the stakes are like easily done. But story-wise, that's a bigger level of thing. What do you think is the conflict story-wise? There has to be a conflict in both. I think in both of the levels.
The lack of communication.
Yeah.
The father and son.
Where does it come from? Yeah, the lack of communication. I think that is like a subject or a theme more, but where does the conflict come from? It comes from the character. Can somebody detail what's...
I would say probably from the father character, mainly because maybe he had this trouble in his childhood, and
Yeah.
it's kind of hard for him to talk about it because
Yeah.
of that trouble.
Yeah, he's not very talkative. I think, yeah, it's very simple actually, but yeah, that's the thing. It's maybe his background, maybe his character, we don't know. But you know, he's just not very good at talking. He's shy in a way. He's timid in a way. He's just this Finnish farmer father. And you know, the thing it's in his character, I think, where the conflict comes. If he would be a different kind of character, there would be no film because they would just talk it out and it would be easy for them. But because the way he is, that creates the conflict in the story in the deeper level. Yeah.
So would you say the resolution for that is him getting in the way and forcing everyone to have conversation?
Yeah, basically that, I think. Yeah. And of course, it's not that, of course, these are like idealizations. There is also a little smaller resolution in the second, or you can, in the last scene, where he kind of jokes, he puts out this couple of jokes, so he's more okay with the things. So you can see it in two ways, but I think even as a second resolution or like a confirmation for the first action he did. But I think you going in the front of the police car is like a more bigger change in the character's action. So that's why it's probably like the big thing here. And you know, what's the stakes in the story, in the communication thing? Really haven't thought about that. But if anyone got ideas, what's the stakes here?
Yeah. If I could just talk about when they break into the pharmacy, that they're risking being arrested, and the stakes for getting the pills are higher. But you needed that plot device in order to bring the policeman in.
Yeah. Yeah.
The stake.
Good. Or I'd say the overall stake for it is if they fail, she gets pregnant.
Yeah, that's true. That's the plot-wise, I think. But story-wise, I think this is like, I don't know. If these are not official. These concepts are really wishy-washy, by the way. I just use them for my end, you know. Yeah.
So for story, I'd say that relationships get broken.
Yeah.
I was going to say the father says, "You're not coming here anymore."
Mm-hmm.
And then the Costi lays down and gets the communication going. So suddenly they're eating, having a meal. And so it looks like maybe the "you're not ever coming here again" got turned around by establishing the communication.
Yeah, that's another way to think about it. Yeah, the communication, you know, if you don't have communication with someone, I think it's bad. It maybe even breaks the relationship with your son, with the father of your son's girlfriend. I think that's the stakes. You know, that's like the bigger picture here. So yeah, and of course what you said earlier about the rising kind of thing here. Yeah, that's of course, you know, when you have this is from the Robert McKee story. I hope you are going to have read that at some point. I think it's very good, like a consistent work on screenplay structure. And the thing is that once the character tries to do something, let's talk about plot, like the plot, the morning after pill thing here. They first, of course, do the reasonable thing. They try to get to the pharmacy by car. You know, when the car fails to start, there's like this first stage. There's the car won't start. Okay, then they have to take like a bigger risk. They are taking like a tractor, but that fails too because the pharmacy is closed. They have to take even a bigger risk and break into the pharmacy, and then there's even bigger risks for the thing because the police comes around, and it's the father of the girl. And you know, at the end, they basically stand to lose everything unless the father takes action, and he does that. So yeah, that's kind of the rising tension, the rising conflict on the plot. We need, you know, the problem structuring a screenplay is that you have to have a raising stakes and a raising thing going on in a class. Now I am again talking about classical structure in a screenplay. You know, not about the mini plot. It can work differently, I think. I'm not such an expert in that. Read Robert McKee's book for that. But you know, you cannot like go back on this kind of a conflict thing, or else it will feel boring. And designing that into your screenplay is always difficult. Now I'm writing for the Finnish broadcasting company, and we have this guy who really 24-year-old, not in employment, not in education or training. This kind of there's not a very good word in English, but left behind guy who really wants a girlfriend, and he gets meets this one girl and gets to date with him and so on. So we have to really carefully lay out the path with the girl. So everything that comes in their relationships is always a little bit more difficult to this guy. Yeah. And of course, there's another way to look at this through the character. This whole thing here. There is the want and the need. You heard about this? Yeah. So there's these characters. There's Kosti, who is the father. Then there is the son. I think he had some name, but I think because it's not used in the film. It's 4 years since I don't remember. There's the girlfriend. He's Mari. But it's mostly about these two, of course. So the want in this film is get the pill, and the need is to communicate. That's another way to look at this whole thing in this film's concept. You know. Okay, so this workshop is about writing comedy, and I've been only talking about this concept. Where's the fun part in here? So, yeah, for me, the writing comedy with the heart is, of course, writing a good story, because these kind of things I think applies to all classical stories, which I guess 95% of the stories we see in the films are. And you know, the difference is, I think, trying to write the funny scene or trying to find the scene in the right scene for the story. And that's I think if you try to write a good film or write a funny scene, I think it's not going to work very well, you know, because then you're writing for the end result, or not to tell a story in a way. So that's why I wanted to talk about these. But you know, comedy is a funny subject because it's such a difficult thing to grasp in a way. Yes, English is not my first language. So if you go look how to write comedy, if you just type what is humor in Google, it gives you answers from Wikipedia, which is humor is there's setup and then there's punchline, and that's not very good advice, you know. The thing, I think, it's same like asking someone how to write a symphony, and they're telling, yeah, well, there's violins and then there's cellos and trombones, and it's a technical definition. But comedy in itself, I did my thesis on writing a funny commercial films. It's writing a funny commercial film. So I did some research. I read through a book of Sigmund Freud, and there was this, how do you say this, 19th century French philosopher and stuff. But by far the best practical advice I got was this little 150 pages 90s book called Comic Toolbox from John Warhouse. It's the jokes there are a bit dated because it's from 90s, but the thing with the exercises he gives are excellent. I'll write my book recommendations to you down here. the subtitle of the book is "How to Comic Book Toolbox: How to Be Funny Even When You're Not." Like all writing comedy is like a muscle, you have to train it. Comic Toolbox, and of course there's the story by Robert McKee. Let me write it down if you're not too familiar on the structure thing. So I be basically stealing from that book the rest of this stuff. But you know, the thing with the comedy is that it kind of escapes from the definitions it has. You know, the setup punchline is not a very good definition, and there has been many guesses what makes a thing funny. And like the best biological explanation I came across when I did my thesis, you had to do these more theoretical things, came from the two neuroscientists who said that comedy is kind of a biological reflex, the spotting something that is different from your expectations, actually. So comedy has something to do with expectations and like this subverting this surprise that comes with the expectations. But it's more, it's like they said it's something like it's in an evolutionary thing that when you see something on the savannah, your brain gives you a little dash of pleasure from, you know, seeing the incontinuity in stuff, you know, like you are noticing something is not as it should be. But you know, but more like practical definition from this guy is that it's the gap. It's gap. Comedy is gap between like the real reality and comic reality. You know, it's like a man came up to me on the street today and told me I haven't had a bite in a week, so I bit him. So it's the thing here that's going on in this joke is like there's this reality where the haven't had the bite means he haven't eaten. So, and then there's the comic reality where you can interpret the word literally. So it's where I haven't been very organized with this thing, but you know, there's this comedy, comic reality, real reality. Okay, yeah, that's the thing. So let's do an exercise. Get your notebook and pen or laptop, whatever. You have 3 minutes. You need to kill your editor, and I would like you to write 10 funny sport teams' name, just something like Nashville Potatoes and or like whatever, New York Mudsliders. They don't have to be good. And the thing is, you know, you don't have to share them or anything. You just write 10 as fast as you can, anything that comes in your mind, funny sport team names. The thing with the writing is 90% of everything is crap. You know, look at your list. You know, you have to just try and try and try. You know, look at the list. There is probably, or I think, you know, it's not an easy exercise, but you know, the thing is that you probably have like 1 or 2 names that are really funny there in your list, you know, since you tried. And the thing what I did with my film is also the same thing. You know, we did write a lot of versions. We edited a lot, you know, because you can't get things right. We did a lot of fakes. That's how it goes. And you know, the thing is that you want to kill your editor in the certain spaces. What I do now that I'm writing these episodes of web series is that what I think is that, oh, it's just the first draft, or we are going to rewrite it later. That's how I get over the resistance, which is actually my third. I'm going to have 3 book recommendations. It's for the process of the writing. It's an excellent book. It's called War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Anyone familiar with this book? Oh yeah, okay, you heard it. That's great.
I read that in my screenwriting class quite a bit. Like, very motivational.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. Haven't read that one. But he must know something about that. Yeah. There's one good advice. Yeah, there's one good quote from him that motivates me a lot. It's like, I think it goes like this: amateur writes on inspiration, professionals like us just go to work. And I think that's really true in a way, you know. In just think what I try to do, what I haven't been successful, I just try to go every like 10 a.m., sit couple of hours, try to do something even if it's hard. That's like my ideal life for me. Just try to make it as boring as possible. You know, because when you more of art. Who really knows what she's talking about in that book? Save the cat. Well, I think I think it's the one, if I'm not mistaken, it's the one with a lot of more rules than in the story. I'm not really a big fan of those specific rules, like on a page this has to happen that. I think like the McKee put it, it's more for me about the principles of drama. You know, the principles that has been here for 5,000 years when they had this Gilgamesh put on a stone tables, and you know the classical Greek drama written 2,000 years ago. It's really the form of the story hasn't changed. But yeah, let's back to the comedy. So the comic reality and the real reality in the things. You know, this. So you can just think of anything ordinary and then do a little twist to it. You know, going to a store, shopping for grenades, listening to Mozart in a frat house, biking to work, but Donald Trump is doing it. You know, it's yeah. This is like the comic reality and real reality. There's something, you know, like dancing, but you could do it in a different place. What would be like dancing, but you don't have legs? That's what that's out of my top of my mind. You know, and there's the comic reality comes afterwards. So that is your next exercise in writing comedy. You know, you have to think just something. You know, a carrot, going to work. You know, whatever, and then write the comic reality to it. You know, babysitting a grandma. You know, it's whatever. I'm not making up all of this. I did this exercise on them this morning, and you know, but and of course now you don't think too much again. Just write something and then invent something, some twist to it and something weird to it. You know. So you have like 5 minutes. I want you to write again 10 real realities and then some way to twist them in a comic reality. It can be anything, really. Okay. Now you can scan your list again. If somebody wants to share like their top one from the list. Yeah, go ahead.
Someone killing it on the mic, but they actually are killing people.
A Buddhist retreat at a heavy metal concert.
Yeah, didn't catch that.
A Buddhist retreat, like a Buddhist.
Buddhist. Now I get it. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a perfect example. You know, that's what. Yeah, you notice that it's something, you know, like a strip club, and then you insert the opposite, like strip club run by nuns. You know, it's
none of your business.
That's not. Yeah, that would be the name of the strip club. Yeah, it's like yeah. There's I could call it like even an inappropriate answer to some question. There is something comedy. There is the gap. What I was talking about the gap or the twist or surprise you know, what you expect and what you get.
Chopping a tree, but it's actually a power line.
Yeah, that's an unexpected result.
The devil decides to go hitchhiking to see the Eiffel Tower.
Hitchhiking in Paris.
Apparently, yeah, he can't use his powers to just get there, so he has to hitchhike.
Yeah, but that's interesting, you know, and there's this like a lot of comic premises to be had, like having a god or angel or something that we're become like a kind of a man, and all these complications he faces. And that is actually, the next thing is really about the comical premise. And the comical premise has the thing to do with conflict also. You know, are you familiar with the three like layers, or what's the right word? Like the three levels, levels of the conflict. You know what those are? 3 levels of the conflict.
A war fought between clowns and mimes over a child's birthday party.
That's good. But that's not 3 levels of conflict. But there's some element, I think, to that. Okay. So what I'm talking about is kind of a premise. If you take it a little bit farther to an ideal end of films, there is there's this man versus world. You know, the society or like natural disasters movies. If you think something like a film 2012 or something like that, there's like this big conflict with this protagonist against these huge environmental forces, you know. And then there's the conflict level of like man versus man, which is like the most normal thing. And then there's the conflict level of man versus himself. And it's more of course those like inside the things that mostly are happening inside their head. So let's dive these and think about these through that concept. You know, there's this man versus world. Do you have any examples? Of course, you know, films mix these 3. You know, you have any examples from this conflict in a film or in TV series or something like that?
Truman Show.
Truman Show? Yeah, that's good. That's a very good example. And the thing, what's the conflict there?
That the whole world is, he's the TV show. His world is
manufactured.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And the thing we are all, of course, waiting is when he knows what's his reaction going to be. So that's a normal guy in an unnormal world. So it's like the whole world has been flipped around him. That can be like, and that can be turned around. We can have an comedic character of some sorts in a normal world, like a weird guy in a normal world. That also is a man versus world thing, you know, in a comedy or in film in general. That could be like, I think, I had a perfect example in mind. You know, can somebody flip it around for us? What's the other version where Mr. Bean is like a classical example of that. He's like this really weird guy fooling around in a completely normal world, and that's the gap in this situation. No. Man versus the world. I was thinking about these comedy films. I don't top of my head.
Any Jim Carrey film? Ace Ventura, Pet Detective?
Yeah, there could be some, and of course these like.
Well, Bruce Almighty is weird because he can manipulate the world around him.
Okay, man versus man. This is like the most like normal thing of this all. You know, you could have like a buddy cop movie is like a classical example of this. You know, in a comedic sense. You know, I think then you know the police. If you watch TV series, the police has like this some special system that when they assign the partners, they just get the polar opposites of each other. and so on. So like a soldier and pacifist going to war. What's the separation of the characters in the most level? You know, there could be like a super genius scientist and a normal kid. What's the premise of that? Back to the Future. Anyone heard about it? And also Rick and Morty. So that's because it's basically started as a parody of Back to the
Ferris
Future.
Bueller's Day Off.
Ferris Day Off? I haven't heard.
Ferris Bueller. Like there's Ferris, the character that's wildly outgoing, wants to just have the day of his life, going out, being adventurous. His friend Cameron is sick at home, and he's just wanting to lay down, rest, and do nothing.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Like conflict between them. Yeah, the polar opposites again. Yeah.
What is that Weekend at Bernie's? With the dead guy. I'm trying to remember the name of the title.
Weekend at Bernie's.
Weekend at Bernie's, right? Where they pretty much have to take a dead guy everywhere and party. So.
Sounds like a.
I guess that's man versus dead man.
Yeah, you know, just to that's I was thinking. Yeah, for example, shy and timid and very loud and aggressive guy could be like that or something else. And of course, there is man versus self. The films that come in my mind actually. American Psycho, like this big conflict of what is real and what is not in this guy's head. But it can be more.
Liar, liar, or something like that.
Liar.
Yeah.
Where it's another Jim Carrey film where he basically can't lie.
Yeah.
So he has his own trouble since he's a lawyer.
Yeah, that's a perfect lawyer who cannot lie. And you know, that's a man versus self conflict, you know, and yeah, he has to be, and then there's this. It's a long time since there's this son. He makes a promise, I think, you know, and then he cannot lie that he hasn't fulfilled the promise, and he gets all sorts of trouble because of that. Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah.
There's Click, where like he gets a remote that can control the universe, and he decides to skip through all the boring things in his life, and then he realizes that because he's skipping that, he's missing some of the important moments of life.
Yeah, it's not really about the great stuff just in first. Yeah, there's interesting. Yeah, there's some really deep stuff going under there. But yeah, it's man versus himself again. His own, like, I think what he's battling there might be like put in the words like his own instincts or like his own mielihalu is the word in Finnish, but I just don't get it. Like his no, I don't get the word. But and yeah.
So these levels of conflict are within all stories, not just comedic stories, is what you're saying? This can be applied in comedy. Of course, everything can be turned to a comedy, but you know, this works for all of the stories. And actually, in the best of the stories, maybe all of these might be in one story. You know, take for a Lord of the Rings example. You know, we have. Frodo has to take the ring to the Mount of the Doom, and by doing that he will save the entire world as we know it. So it's like this, and the environment tries to, Frodo and the fellowship, the group with the ring, fellowship, fellowship is in a constant conflict with the environment, like in Moria with the river, with the swamps, Mordors, and then there's like their conflict with each other at some point. Right. Boromir tries to take the ring.
Yeah. There's the Saruman who has beef with the Gandalf and the Fellowship, and of course at the end, of course, the Frodo is in conflict with himself at the Mount Doom because he cannot throw the ring into the fire. And that's like all the story layers, all the levels of conflict you can have in the story. So, we could try and exercise writing the same way we did last time, but now we are going to be a little bit more specific. I want you to write like 3, 3, and 3 of each ones. You know, just, no, I have to cheat because I haven't, like a man versus world conflict with the comedic premise, or it doesn't have to be that comedic, don't worry about that. You know, a small town tackles an alien invasion, for example, you know, and you know, normal guy deals with a crazy neighbor. It could be a man versus man, or it could be something more specific, you know. And then there's like a man versus self, like a troll becomes the next top model. It could be something man with the self. You know, just invent 3 of each one. Just do it quickly. So, man versus world. Anyone wants to share one of these?
Guy loses his wedding ring in a wasp's nest.
Wedding ring in a wasp's nest.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah,
Say that in the Elmer Fudd voice.
Guy loses wedding ring in a wasp's nest.
Anyone else?
Very, very quiet.
Very quiet.
Smartphone must survive a power outage.
A man yells at his dog, who decides to yell back for once.
That's surprising. Okay, man versus man. What are the 2 characters? Or anyone? Yeah, there.
A dwarf and a groundhog fight for an underground domain. No?
And then turns around the groundhog.
I was thinking why they're fighting. That's my
that's
question.
the thing. You got
Yeah.
pull up the story.
What's the
dwarves
conflict between them?
You know,
Yeah,
the domain
so
over
that's
the
true.
and the groundhog.
You know, could there be like a gnome lives there?
Well, the dwarves live underground.
Yeah.
So we know those two.
A group of strangers all realize they've been kidnapped for various reasons by a demented family. They have to work together to break out of the house.
Breaking out the house. That's great. Oh. I think it's more of like a world. It depends on, of course, how do they do it. And man versus self. What did you come up with? This is, I think, more difficult one. Yeah.
A kid walks in on his parents doing the deed, and he tries various different methods to try to erase the memory.
Yeah, that's definitely kid versus himself. Yeah, that's yeah.
A unicorn decides that they want to become a rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros. Yeah. You want to become something else. Yeah, that's great. And transformations are always like a good source of comedy. You could have like the thing I said about kid becoming a CEO, or like I don't know, Albert Einstein joining the frat house, something like that. You know, you could have like the transferring a character. This is called like the fish out of water thing. It's transferring is always funny, you know. I don't like a Tootsie. It's just simple as that, you know. Man pretends to be a woman to get the job, you know.
That's Tootsie.
Tootsie, yeah, it's Tootsie.
I'm now imagining a unicorn working out, and it's very funny.
I told you. Well, the other one I had too, which was this was inspired by Kids in the Hall. There's a skit called "Girl Drink Drunk," where the guy locks himself in the closet to blend drinks that are girly drinks that he doesn't want anybody to know about. So I have one that a man fights his addiction to gummy bears.
Doing that now.
I actually made like one of my small short films I made in school was a girl who fought her addiction to McDonald's milkshakes because I really like McDonald's milkshakes.
So you fought that addiction?
Guy has to try to hold in a fart during a date.
Well, yeah, that's simple, but that's very effective. Or a boner or something like that. That could be like there's certain pain proof with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he showed that. We were cracking up.
I was a director of photography for that.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, she watched it too.
Okay, now we can go actually back to the character. We discussed the wants and the needs, but what makes a comic character? This is once again according to John Warhouse. Do you have any thoughts on what makes a comic character? What makes like Mr. Bean or Homer Simpson funny? Okay, that's a good question actually. Why is Homer Simpson funny?
They're klutzes. They're klutzes. They're just naturally a klutz.
Socially awkward.
Socially, I don't know. If not, basically Homer is not that. He's shy or he doesn't. Well, there is a side to him that he doesn't understand what he's doing.
Maybe accident prone.
Accident prone. Yeah. Why is he accident prone? What in his like character makes him that? Yeah.
The way it was kind of described to me is a character is dealing with this challenge constantly, but they still got to keep going even though there's obvious suffering going on. Mm. If they gave up, suddenly the energy would be cut out and there'd be more of a drama. But if they're trying to persist in spite of the challenge, then it's comedic.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be that way. Yeah, too.
They have some kind of quality that they don't realize.
That's a good one. Yeah, they have some flaw they don't like, they don't get. That's true.
They don't react to the situation in the way that everyone else would.
Yeah, that's one type of comedy character. Yeah, in like when we discussed like this, like Mr. Bean, like if you do it like that way, or but that can be of course be another way, and that the world is weird and the character is normal. Yeah, that's true, but that's one thing.
I'd say one of the elements is that there's still an air of believability. There's a way that you can relate to some of the actions that happen. Even though sometimes it is blown a little out of proportion, it's something that is somewhat grounded in reality.
Yeah, that's true, and I think that is just what style of comedy you're doing. Of course, if you're doing slapsticks, the thing can go really far, and if you're doing like a drama comedy, they have to be more nuanced. But yeah, that's really a style thing. Yeah, and yeah, but why is Homer Simpson funny? I think because it's really simple. He's dumb and lazy. That's his comedic perspective. That thing is like that drives him. You know, he doesn't realize what he's doing, but he's lazy and he loves food. That's basically like it's really simple. You know, and that is his comic perspective. You know. That's what the comic characters needs. He needs a strong comic perspective, and the strong here is also important. If the Homer Simpson would be like a pretty normal guy who just eats donuts sometimes, and like it's like most of the time it's pretty okay, but sometimes a pretty lousy dad. It wouldn't really work. He has to be like really dumb. And has a conflict. Of course, he's working in a nuclear power plant. This is like a worst place to him to work, of course. And then there is like this. He's just crazy about donuts, crazy about foods. He will do anything to get them. That's his strong comic perspective, you know. And like you can took like anything about human life and kind of turn it into a comic perspective. Like the best stand-up comedians, for example, they have created themselves a comic character. Like I think of Conan O'Brien. He's like this juvenile kid all the time doing this like kind of a juvenile remarks. That's his point of like the perspective on the world, on the everything, and that's how he makes a comedy. But you know, let's think about some. You know, you could have a character that's so shy he wants to be polite on everyone, and then he says stupid things because he wants to be polite, and so on. And the second thing I hear is important, like every comic thing is exaggerate things as much as possible. You know, it's not that like the Homer Simpson thing. He's not just like incompetent in his work. He's downright really lazy and works in a nuclear power plant. So it's like exaggerations all the way. It has to be like big. You can you can actually like if you can be drunk, but then you can be pissing your pants drunk, you know, not able to walk drunk, you know. It's you can take anything. You can be tone deaf and say stupid things in a really bad places, you know. That's how you take something and make it bigger. And like the father in my film, what his comic perspective, what makes him a comic character?
Doesn't talk.
Yeah, he's shy in a way. Yeah, he's not able to talk any touchy things about himself. And of course, he has to be like he's all the way not talkative. You know, if he would be more normal, it wouldn't be that funny. And the son, he's just, you know, really not coping with things. I think he's a bit lost. No. Yeah. Or you could be like a thrill seeker and an adrenaline junkie, and you could be an eccentric collector accumulating nose hairs. That's like an exaggerate. You could, okay, let's do it actually a bit of an exercise. You can do like you wrote these 10 realities, comic reality things. You can pick 2 and try to exaggerate them even more. Try to pick 2 of those and exaggerate them. You know, make them even crazier. Like, you know, I was saying going to shop to buy grenades. Why not nuclear bombs? You know, and not for any shop. You go some maybe some little shop on the countryside. You know, with a real nice older lady selling you the nuclear bombs. That would be weird. Did the exaggerations make them funnier to you? Yeah, of course this is a thing of the style, you know. There is different levels of exaggerations when you do certain style of comedy. Yeah. Okay, but our comedy character, whatever, it's not still like very complete with the strong comic perspective. He needs 2 other things. He needs flaws first of all, because flaws are always interesting. Like, you know, money is a nice thing to have, but being greedy is a flaw. And you can exaggerate the flaw, and you get Uncle Max Scrooge from Donald Duck. You know. Not liking people might be a flaw, and if you exaggerate that, you might get like a Dr. House, for example. The irony here is, of course, that he has to work with people because he's a doctor. So, what are the flaws of the Homer Simpsons? This is basic. I think we already actually discussed that. Yeah, he's lazy, he's stupid, what else?
Fat.
What?
Or he's heavy, fat.
Fat, yeah, but yeah, actually that's a flaw in a way, because he sometimes gets stuck on things, and you know.
That was part of the Simpsons movie.
Yeah, that's
Or he just
the sandbox.
purchases the clothes that are a size too small.
Oh.
He's a bit of a temper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He gets angry easily. You know, he doesn't control his emotion. That's a flaw. Yeah. And you know, it's much fun to be had. You know, when you try to find flaws in them, like a what's classical thing, like Groundhog Day. It's comedy. You know, I don't know why it always comes up in the filmmaking class. No, it's something to do with the 80s. You know, but yeah, what's the flaw of the main character there? No.
He's not a good person.
Yeah, he's selfish.
Self-centered.
Yeah, he's self, and the thing is that he has to learn not to be. You know, that's his flaw.
And make the most of his time, because he's stuck in a loop, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's one Yeah, one side of it. I haven't thought of that way. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, everyone has flaws. Mr. Bean doesn't just simply is just really weird. He doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know. It's really hard to pinpoint what's funny in that, but no, it's flaws. But you know, we also have to fall in love with the character, I think. You know, and then there has to be this other side, this likable side in the character, because if they're just terrible persons, you know, it wouldn't work, really, because the audience, like we wouldn't care about them. So that's what John Warhouse calls humanity of the character. It's something that is likable. What is likable about Homer Simpson?
It's funny.
Uh,
It's funny. Well,
it comes mostly from the flaws and the strong, but there's something, you know, a bit deeper in him.
At the core, he loves his family.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what we like about him. He may be dumb, he may do some stupid things, but at the end of every episode, if he's been rude to his family or like somehow abandoned them, he realizes that and he's sorry. You know, it's at least the classical Simpsons. I don't know what the newer ones are doing. They're doing terrible things, you know. But that's like maybe what's wrong with the new Simpsons is that they don't tell good stories, like heartfelt stories, which like always when I watch a classical episodes, they have this really strong story backbone. It's not just funny pop cultural references. It's a really good stories that makes the episode so great. So that's why like the structure of the story is so important. But yeah, we have to have something about every character that we like. He could be generous. He could learn from his mistake. You know, anything. Okay, I would like you to think of, or you can base it on the things we've written earlier, but try to think of like 3 different comic characters. You can base it on of these things or just spin it around and create 3 of these. The guy with the one with the strong comic perspectives, with flaws and some likability, some humanity to those characters. You know, you can just take like what I was thinking, like procrastination to write would be an interesting. So my comedic character, for example, could be a writer who's written 3 books but now cannot start his 4th book at all. So he's completely stuck. And his flaws is he's very self-centered, but he's maybe really smart. That could be like one of my characters, just off the top of my head. And he would also love smoking, I guess. But yeah, go ahead, write 3 characters, give them a name, give them a perspective to the world, like Peter, who is expert to everything on the world. And remember to use the exaggeration. That is like what you can think of pretty much anything and exaggerate that to make it better. So what I wrote there was it's a Finnish name, but he's called Martti Mäenkylä, and his strong comic perspective is that he wants everything to be really tidy and really neat, and he goes in the city council to get everyone, you know, the fight everyone whose lawn is dirty. And his flaws is that he has an OCD, he wants everything to look nice, but he loves the community he lives in. That's just from the top of my head. Anybody else? You know, I don't have to share, but yeah.
James, he is a guy who was incredibly sheltered growing up, very innocent, clean-minded, but nearly everything he says is an inadvertent innuendo. Like has a sexual undertone to it. So the humanity portion is he's wanting to propose to his girlfriend, so he's wanting to meet with her father to get the blessing.
So he doesn't realize that he's saying these sexual things.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's very good. Sounds funny.
Reminds me of your media 24.
They have this priest who
She remembers.
accidentally scheduled a wedding and a funeral on the same day. And people are showing up for both occasions unaware.
Oh, it's in the same time.
Yes, same place, same time.
Yeah.
And trying to juggle all of that.
That's a good situation. That could go anywhere. What kind of a guy is the priest? Is he's like he tries to be really nice on everyone. He doesn't want to bother anyone.
Yes.
And that's why he cannot say he's making, or why he cannot say he's made a mistake.
And meanwhile, he's flabbergasted that his scheduling had gotten so out of whack.
Yeah. Or you could turn that another way. He could be like he cannot admit his mistakes. That could be another story from that. Yeah. I'm always interested in the why questions. Why character does something. That's really important. Because at the end of the process, your writing process can start from anywhere, but at the end of it, just an image or a funny scene or anything, but at the end you have to have answers to all the kind of a why questions. Why something happens in the thing. And that's why I was asking why the priest just cannot say to the people that he has made this mistake. He could just announce it, but there has to be something in him that prevents that. And that's when you get more scenes. When you get to that, if it's you just know it by instinct. If he's shy or timid and wants to please everyone, or is it another way? He cannot he cannot admit his mistakes, and then what would happen? If he's that kind or that kind of guy, and how would the story go? What's the most interesting guy we can come up with? Yeah. So that's the comic character. This is really narrowed down. So we have the levels of conflict. We have the comic characters. I hope you have at least one idea or one thing in there that really makes you feel good, excites you, because it's not that hard. We do a work. We sit down. We come up with something. It's really that simple. If you focus on the process of finding, for example, trying to write a funny scene, you just try to find the gap between these two realities, Yeah, but I think this is all we can have. I think this should be this should end around 6:30, right?
We can it's up to you. We can kind of go
okay.
however you're feeling.
I have a question about
sure.
When you apply these to animation, because you were talking about being over the top and exaggerated, do you think that's why animated stories, like you were talking about Homer Simpson, for example, is that why you think some of these animated characters can be so convincing? Because I think if you had the same guy in a live action feature, it may not be as funny.
Yeah, that's true. I think it has to be something to do with the believability of things in some way. In animation you have I think you sometimes have more freedom in a way, because you are not immediately asking questions like, but how is that done, for example? It's not believable, and that is interesting, and that's actually a good example, for example, to set some story, good reason to set some story in a history. For example, we were thinking this sitcom idea that sets in the Middle Ages and people are very superstitious, and then there is this courthouse of this middle-aged village that gathers every Friday or something, and then they deal with all these villages' problems, and they're solved in the middle age modern problems, but they solve it in the middle age environment and with all their superstitions and everything. And there we could exaggerate things like crazy, because you don't bump into that, but that's not believable so easily, because it's set so back. You are not nobody's probably not an expert to Middle Ages, like an average viewer, so you can do all kinds of funny things. And I think animation is sometimes, and of course there's this productional side to it. It's easier to do these crazy things crazy things because drawing costs same if it's like a domestic drama between two people in the kitchen or something with the space explosions in the space. It's of course that's why it's easier to do crazier things. Yeah.
So throughout my life, I've realized that comedy is a very subjective thing. People laugh and not laugh at certain things, and I was having trouble kind of getting past that sort of thing while I was writing the movie for my film class, because I tried to go as comedic as I could because I really like comedy and I like doing comedy things because it's funny. I like people laughing. I like laughing myself.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
But one of the major things I was having was that even though I would find a joke really funny, others might not have found that funny, or others would. And my question is, how do you get past that sort of subjectivity? Where you write so that it's not only funny to you and some other few people, but funny to all types of people who like certain things.
Yeah, that is a really difficult question, of course. I think for me, this is my personal taste. Writing comedy is, of course, like writing the story first. So the jokes have to come pretty naturally from the story. Like in the case of About the Birds and the Bees, first drafts I tried to find funny story, and then I just tried to write the story. And when we were finished, I had no idea if it was funny at all. I was like, this is the story, and it turned out to be funny, so it which was nice. But but what comes to that, it's about knowledge. I think in a way, you have to just, for example, the police stops quantum physics. I forgot his name. Yeah, Schrödinger on the street.
Schrödinger's cat.
Yeah, but
is that what you're talking about?
Or is it like?
The cat can be dead or alive. It depends on what state it's in.
Yeah, but it's actually another quantum theory. I was trying to make a joke about, but I'm not sure if I have the right physicist. But he asked him, "Have you any idea how fast you were driving?"
No, that's Einstein in relativity, I think.
No, that's not Einstein. But yeah, this is supposed to be a joke that nobody gets, so it doesn't matter if it's really not. Yeah. But he asks this. Oh no, it's about Kurt Gödel. No, it's not him. But yeah, whenever this quantum physicist gets stopped by a police asks him, "Have you any idea how fast you were driving?" And the physicist answer is, "No, but I know exactly where I am." And that's not funny. That's not funny because if you're not quantum physicist, because you have to know that there is this certain fundamental theory in there that says that we cannot know the exact position and the speed of the particle at the same time.
Similar to Schrödinger's.
Yeah, but if you make a joke about death or joke about sex or something like that, there's something or love or being a child. There has to be in a jokes that if you want to be like mainstream audience, there has to be something that they can connect to. Of course, there has to be something universal in a way. The jokes on that is, of course, the premise of the film is about if you don't find talking with sex with your parents at all awkward, I don't know how would you feel about my film. You have to know that it's a touchy, awkward subject. If you didn't feel that way, it probably would seem just weird, I think. But it's just, you have to just know what the audience know. It's not that I cannot put it in another way, I think.
Make it sort of relatable to what everybody sort of feels.
Yeah, I think that is like the truth in comedy. There has to be some truth about it, something and some universal thing you are trying to say or portray, or like that is based on in the human condition, if I'm able to say, and some feeling like the feeling in my film. It's not easy to talk about sex with your parents, and that's like the feeling that you all know. And that's why if it's funny to you, it's funny. You know, that's you know, and being like being that kind of awkward situation. And if you don't know that, it's of course it would probably seem such weird. So I think that is that, you know, if it's possible, of course, to make real obscure jokes, but you know, then nobody is going to get it. You know, you have to have the right information. Yeah.
You didn't have a whole lot of dialogue in there, and yet it came across as funny. And so I think that a lot of it has to do with timing. But how do you write that into a script when you're describing, you know, you're doing your action lines? How do you do that?
I think, I don't know. I should have English translations of the film script, but you know, it's just, you know, something how you see things. I don't know, and it's of course about directing things, you know, to get the right feel to them. But you know, I'm from a small place, and I know a lot of people who have a hard time talking about, you know, feelings in my family. And I think, you know, when you know these kind of truths, then it's easier to do my kind of film, you know, because you have some experience to, you know, write something about you know, and then it's easier to direct and, you know, get it right, you know, so that everyone will kind of get it, you know. But you know, in a script wise, scripts you have to just train your script writing skills. I think I've been getting it much better, like since that film. You know, it's about, you know, how you set the things. It's not that you don't have to point what is funny, but it just comes naturally when you just describe the action. You know, it's about, you know, fine tuning the situations and the characters. I think, you know, to be
like the scene where he first approaches his dad about wanting to go out, and it was funny because his dad reacts in a way that we don't expect him to. He just puts on the headphones and then starts, you know, chopping on the wood.
Yeah, that's exactly what it says in the scripts. That the boy asks this, he puts on the headphones and starts doing that. That's just how you write it, you know. Yeah. I don't know how I came up with that, but you know, of course I've been doing that thing with my dad, you know, sawing some woods, but you know, that's where the idea for the scene setup came from. But you know, I think if the father kind of talk about these things, that's very clear. What the implication is very clear with the headphones, you know. Yeah. Where do things come from? Yeah, there is this magical side to writing. You know? When you do it, things just start to happen. When you focus what I've been saying, and what's the War of Art is, I think, all about, is like focusing on the process and not the end result. And you just have to sit down. It's really hard. You just have to do something, and in the end you will find, I call them solutions, because my background is mathematics. You find solutions to the problems you have yourself kind of invented in your script. It's about finding solutions for me. Yeah.
Can you talk about revisions a little bit? You talked about the different drafts of your script.
Yeah.
I find that the revision process is maybe the hardest part, because people get attached to their initial perspective. Very hard for them to cut down.
Yeah, that is.
The Ernest Hemingway quote is that all first drafts are shit. And it gets good through rewriting. How do you approach that? How do you know what advice to take from other people? What's your revision process like?
Well, I think you know that you have to find, you know, of course when you start writing you don't know what the thing is about, you probably, you know, of course someone can you know have the theme first and then construct the story again, but I think most people start with some detail, you know, that's interesting, and then goes deeper into their story. And you know, if you know that kind of this thing that, like in my film, it's like about communication between the father and the son, and they trying to talk, and then you can, you know, if there's some propositions that you get, then you can frame it through that, of course. You know, the central theme or central subject of your film in somehow. It's a bit wishy-washy, I admit it. But you know, I think, and another one that actually my screenwriter like teachers were pretty kind of brutally honest, and one of them one of them said very well to me about the film student's ego. It was pretty provocative, but that's why I remember it, because and now I realized, since I've become now a professional, the thing with the film students, he said, is that they have so big ego, even though they could get like a good idea, like in a professional world, you would just, oh, that's a good idea, let me put that. But you put it in my script, but the film students is thinking, I am not original if I use someone else's idea. And I think that's something, of course, you get over it when you do many projects and many stuff. But for example, like the best ideas in my film, I think, like the police being the girl's father, is not actually my idea. It came from my screenwriter teachers, and they had this idea, and of course I created a character, what he's like, and everything, dialogue. But the original idea is actually not mine. So, but I'm happy to take any good advice. If someone can give me, to my current project, if someone is willing to take the time and read through the 100 pages and give me ideas, of course, I'm really willing to take everything. Of course, there is this trouble, getting through all that. But I'm always happy if somebody gives me something, But of course, reading scripts, it takes practice, learning story. You have to write it. I think it's not just you can walk anybody to the street and give them a script, to get the good advice, of course. So you have to be considerate on that too. Yeah.
Can you talk about your writing process? Like when we were taking Brian's class, he talked about having a set time of the day that you would start writing. And I mean, do you have that kind of routine, or do you just write when the inspiration comes? And do you have a filing system? And what's your process?
That's my dream to I think I said it earlier, to go to my workroom or library or wherever I work to 10 p.m. every morning from Monday to Friday, write 4, maybe 5 hours, and then be done with it. Mm-hmm. That's my dream. That's what I'm aiming for, to make the process as boring as possible for me. That is like, and that's what this, of course, War of Art, I cannot recommend it enough. It's really about that, because there is this. If you try to create something original, there is this resistance to it. You start telling yourself, no, it's not a good time.
Right.
I cannot do this. There's self-doubt. There's lots of things. It can take many forms. I have to go out with my friends. Now I don't feel like this. And that's what helps you. I think the thing that helps me is to have like a schedule, for example, for it. And what of course helps in the professional world is that there's someone you write to. There's this producer at Finnish broadcasting company who's waiting my script. I cannot just not write it. That's a problem if I'm writing for myself. It's easier to kind of be too personal about it. To receive criticism, if you're too personal with the project, it can be a problem, I think, in a way. Of course, you have to know by the heart of the story, but then you have to be able to switch something to the changes, and then and it helps with the work, of course, because if you have a deadline, you have to do something. The same thing what we did with these comedic exercises. You probably wouldn't have those ideas if I hadn't told me you have 5 minutes to do that. Setting a deadline, having a word schedule, I think they're good things. Yeah. So, but I'm not there yet. I don't have that schedule. I'm not professional enough. Sometimes I go late.
The thing is, you need to be, because you're clearly successful. You've been accepted into a couple of different film festivals already. And do you really need a process, is I guess my question, because there's lots of artists in different fields that they get inspired, they start sculpting or whatever they do, and then it's miraculous.
Of course, anything that fits you is fine. It's not like this is just for my personal, experience. For me, it's really easy not to write. Writing is the hardest thing for me. Yeah. Then still I have to do it. So So yeah, but of course I'm envied people who can just write an inspiration and do it regularly, you know, to produce lots of materials that way. I'm not that kind of person. I cannot do that. I have to just kind of force myself to do it in a way. Yeah. And that's where the schedule helps.
When you were shooting your short film, when you were on set as the director per se, right? You were the director of it. Did you talk a lot with your director of photography in a sense of what type of shots you wanted, or did you let him have more range to make your script come to life?
I think that's a very personal question, in a way that what kind of persons you are, how do you work together, in a more general sense. I think in that I've been working with other DPs too, you know, DOPs, yeah, DOPs. But you know, I think this is where I think I decided on most of the framings. I think, you know, in the sense. The DOP did more on the lighting side of stuff. So of course we discussed a lot. You know, he had his own ideas, and you know the colors and everything, blah blah blah. But yeah, I think it's very personal, and it just kind of it's like a group project. You know, you have to find just by trial and error how it works for you. I don't know. And it's great thing. I was shooting my new short film a couple of weeks old. I had really nice experience with the DOP, who had really had a lot of ideas and, you know, about the framing and stuff, and it was great. You know, he did. I didn't have to tell him anything probably about the lighting. Of course, we had discussed everything beforehand, and that is, I think, the most important part. Like when you're shooting, it's kind of just execution. You know, all the fun part is like writing and planning, and then you go execute, and then there's the interesting part is editing. I don't know, fun part, shooting is always fun, but you know, the interesting part in filmmaking happens before and after the shooting, I think. You know, shooting is mostly just running around and getting what you need. You know, it's really, I think, the most boring part of it, you know, the least creative part, actually. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.